Nearly 1 month after the deadly hill country flooding, authorities in Kerr County grilled by state lawmakers investigating the tragedy.
The 3 guys in Kerr County who were responsible for sounding the alarm were effectively unavailable.
But when the time came to act, they did not do so in a timely fashion.
Area neighbors voicing outrage.
So I'm shocked that their systems were not in place at the time that they should have been in place already.
And as the Kerr County community continues mourning, people demand answers about the response and what happened. And we continue to press for answers, getting accountability here for you. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight on this special edition of News 4 San Antonio at 5. I'm Mandy Noel.
And I'm Jonathan Martinez. We are bringing you special coverage live from Kerrville tonight, where state lawmakers are hearing from the public right now. It is actually all part of a special session committee meeting on the deadly floods that sadly killed more than 130 people roughly a month ago. This hearing includes nearly 24 speakers on 5 separate panels, and we can tell you that it's been taking place all day. In fact, it is still underway right now as lawmakers are hearing from the public right now. At times, we can tell you things got pretty heated. Lawmakers asking direct questions to both city and county leaders about what happened the day of the flooding. What was the response like? What about the warning systems? What needs to be done to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again? In fact, there were explosive moments during today's testimony when state lawmakers started digging into the timeline of events during the flooding emergency. Houston area State Rep Ann Johnson took issue with Kerr County officials on why it took so long to get the code red alert out to the public.
You said at 3:30, when people were having to get off the roofs, that's the moment for all hands on deck. And I'm trying to figure out, is there an existing system that could have gone out to people in floodwaters way to reach higher ground, or are you missing that system?
No, we do have a code red system that something can be put out. Yes, ma'am.
But for whatever reason, in this moment, there was nobody to properly sound the alarm. Is that what I'm hearing?
They did not send the code red, no ma'am, until 5:01.
There were a number of National Weather Service alerts that went out that evening.
I'm not asking about the national weather because that's prediction. I'm talking about the reality on the ground of little girls in their bunks with water around their feet at 2 a.m. Did you have any idea that that was happening? And was there a mechanism in place? Because if it's happening at Camp Mystic, you've got every other camp in this recreational zone at risk. What was the protocol and the process to warn people when that scenario comes up?
To my knowledge, we were not notified that the girls had water in their camp.
Did you have a protocol or a process to give you notice and or to seek assistance at that point, or was this private entity on their own?
No, I've had discussions with the camps before, and the process was they need to notify the sheriff's office.
And we do have a team of reporters covering today's hearing. The News 4i team's Jordan Elder joins us live here in Kerrville. In fact, she was inside the building as this hearing was taking place. She's joining us now with some of the big takeaways. Jordan.
Jonathan, Senator Pete Flores called the flood the monster in the middle of the night. And one of the major developments in today's hearing was that none of Kerr County's top emergency management officials were ready to respond when those waters started to rise.
The 3 guys in Kerr County who were responsible for sounding the alarm were effectively unavailable.
Fireworks at the Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Committee meeting.
We have a lot of folks who have titles, but when the time came to act, they did not do so in a timely fashion.
Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly taking the most heat from lawmakers. He was at Lake Travis the morning of July 4th, so he woke up to texts about the flood.
You woke up at what time again?
5-ish.
5-ish. And what did you do at that time?
I got my dogs and packed up and called the emergency management coordinator. We went over protocols and drove back to town.
You drove back here. Did you come to the EOC that day of July 4th?
After I signed the declaration.
But not everyone believes that story.
I never saw you on day one.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says it was a point he had to make on behalf of families who lost children.
I talked to the sheriff multiple times, Sheriff. I talked to the mayor multiple times. Everyone was here that day working their ass off, and you were nowhere to be found.
This is significant because Texas law says only the county judge or a mayor can issue evacuation orders.
What was the issue why that evacuation order wasn't issued?
It was too late. It was too late.
Okay.
This was so massive and arrived so quickly.
Sheriff Larry Leitha provided a detailed timeline of his deputies' actions that day, but he says he didn't join in until about 4:20 that morning. According to his own timeline, that was after water rescues, people calling in stranded on roofs, and as he joined,
4:24, KCSO Deputy McGee reports he hears kids screaming in the river.
Leitha maintains he had no idea how bad this weather event would be. And William Thomas, the county emergency manager, says he was sick. He came in after his wife woke him up.
You didn't wake up till 4:20. The judge is in Lake Travis, and the emergency manager is sick. There were little girls with water around their feet at 2 a.m. at Mystic, and were told stay in your cabin. And those little girls did what they were instructed.
Now, earlier this week, we told you about a statewide severe weather call that happened a day before the flood on July 3rd. We got confirmation today that Kerr County's emergency management coordinator, William Thomas, was not on that call. The sheriff and the county judge were not pressed about if they attended, and like we've told you before, the city mayor was also not on that call, so it's still unclear who from Kerr County even attended to know what was coming. For the News 4i team, I'm Jordan Elder.
All right, Jordan, thanks a lot for that update. She will be joining us a bit later in this show. Since the flooding tragedy, we've heard countless stories of people who survived the floodwaters. One of the hardest hit areas in Kirk County was at the Camp Mystic area just south of Hunt. A woman who lives not far from there giving testimony at today's hearing. Lori Lowe described the frantic moments when she realized that she and her husband, they had to evacuate.
4:05, we hurriedly self-evacuated in my husband's large pickup as the floodwaters were fully surrounding our home. As we drove up our driveway, the flood was chasing us. It was rising so fast.
And she was just one of many people who spoke at today's hearing. News 4 San Antonio's Taylor Warden joins us also live here in Kerrville with more on what others had to say. Taylor, good evening.
Good evening. Now, this was the first time the public was able to voice their experience from the July 4th flooding. They voiced their concerns as well moving forward. Now, many of the community members here were pleased the committee came to Kerrville today. As the community continues to grieve, many provided testimony, sharing their heartbreaking experience the early morning of July 4th. One mother, Alicia Baker, lost her 11-year-old daughter and her parents. In tears, she tells lawmakers. She identified her daughter by a charm bracelet. She expressed the need for more alerts, saying the river they loved killed her loved ones. And instead of sirens, she said sensors should be put on flood gauges to send out signals when the water rises to such high numbers.
My parents bought a cabin out here in 2008, so this was our regular happy place. The river that we've loved so much killed them. I'm sorry.
All right.
In our community, there were 19 cabins, and we were the only one up on stilts. So let's just say that we got cell service, which we didn't, but with Wi-Fi, you could. Let's just say they got an alert. The alert says seek higher ground. They're on stilts. Thank you. Where are they supposed to go? My suggestion would be that instead of just sirens, we actually have sensors in the water that would then alert sirens to go off.
Another mother, Kelly Raybon, shared the moments her heart sank when she learned her sons at Camp La Junta were involved in the flooding. She drove all the way from Houston to the Hill Country, waiting to hear more information. Today, she was here demanding answers.
Let us not forget that there are people who were here during the disaster who live elsewhere. And right now, we don't have any information on what resources are there for us. I've called the camp. I've called FEMA. They say we have no answers for you.
Raybon says her children are traumatized, highlighting the ongoing trauma from the horrific event. Now those here are saying, when we know better, we do better. And that's what they're hoping moving forward. Reporting live in Kerrville, I'm Taylor Whartonby, News 4, San Antonio.
All right, Taylor, thank you for that angle of the story. You know, several officials from the San Antonio area were also at today's hearing that included the president and CEO of the food bank, Mr. Eric Cooper. He gave testimony before the committee today. Cooper thanking many of the volunteers who helped them distribute food.
Many of those volunteers packed care boxes, and since July 4th, we distributed about $2 million in food. I also wanted to thank all those that donated, the individuals, the churches, the companies, especially HEB.
There was a lot of people coming together in our community. Cooper also said the recovery, at least when it comes to the food for those most impacted, it's likely to take several months. Also coming to light during today's hearings, the tale of two different counties. Officials from both Kendall and Kerr County giving testimony before those committee members today and talked about the timeliness as far as the response and preparedness. And let me tell you, it was two vastly different stories. We want to send things back into Mariah Medina, who's over in the Content Center with more on this story. Mariah.
Yeah, Jonathan, more than 100 of the 135 deaths from the July 4th floods occurred in Kerr County. Testimony today revealing that many of Kerr County's top emergency management officials were asleep while flooding devastated the area. But in Kendall County to the south, they had been constantly monitoring the weather conditions since the morning of July 3rd. That stark contrast came to light during today's hearing as Kerr County's emergency management coordinator, WB Dub Thomas, told committee members he was, quote, off duty and feeling sick leading up to the catastrophic floods. He says he didn't attend a severe weather briefing held the day before by the Texas Department of Emergency Management and relied on detailed meeting notes. Now, as Jordan mentioned, Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly was also out of town, saying he was awoken around 6 a.m. by text after much of the devastation had already occurred. But in Kendall County, it was a much different picture. Kendall County Judge Shane Stolchik testified that his emergency management coordinator, Brady Constantine, had put local emergency personnel on notice the morning before the floods and was actively monitoring weather conditions throughout the night and early morning, activating emergency response around 4 a.m. Kendall County also sounded flood sirens in the Comfort area and issued evacuation orders along the Guadalupe River by 7 a.m.
All the same data was available to both those people, and you have two very different reactions.
It should be noted that Kendall County did not see any loss of life. State lawmakers certainly didn't spare their criticisms of that disjointed response in Kerr County. Mariah Medina, News 4, San Antonio.
All right, Mariah, thank you for that. Now, this committee hearing still going on as we speak. In fact, it's been happening since 9:30 this morning. We are now well into hour 8. Right now, they are hearing more comments from the public. We are streaming this live on our website along with our News 4 YouTube page, and you can go there right now by scanning that QR code on your screen. All right, and our coverage of today's joint hearing continues live here in Kerrville. I do want to bring in Jordan Elder right now, because Jordan, you were inside the room as this testimony. It's still going on, by the way, right now. Perhaps you're watching it. Set the scene. What was the mood like in there?
It was very tense at first. Obviously, these are people who have waited a long time to come tell lawmakers how they're feeling. But there was a bright spot, and we did feel a shift in the room. Instead of just doing 5 panels back to back to back, they're now subbing in 2 panels of Kerrville residents or Hill Country residents, people who came to speak to lawmakers. So they're now getting to have their say a little bit earlier. They don't have to wait as long.
Yeah. So a lot of questions, a lot of things being discussed. I know one of the things, one of the highlights, if you will, is what can be done to prevent something like this from happening again. And I think the follow-up question that generally a lot of people were asking from the public is, how soon can we get that? How soon will we know those answers, though?
That's going to be up to the lawmakers, but the mayor of Kerrville, Joe Herring, told them today, I want a better warning system by next summer. And he said, you guys are here, you're saying that you want to help us, that is something that you can do.